They called her damaged goods, but beneath her protective silence lay a mother's fierce love and a heart still capable of hope. The November wind cut through Clara Manning's worn wool coat as she stepped down from the dusty train onto the platform of Cedar Ridge, Montana Territory. Her gloved hand instinctively moved to the gentle swell beneath her coat, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the past 6 months. The other passengers hurried past her, eager to escape the biting cold, but Clara remained motionless, clutching a crumpled letter that had changed everything just 2 days before her departure from St. Louis. The letter had been brief and brutal. Mr. Garrett would not be meeting her at the station. Upon learning of her condition, he had made it clear that their arrangement was terminated. She was on her own in a territory she had never seen, carrying a child whose father had abandoned them both before she even knew of the baby's existence. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the wooden platform, and Clara could smell the scent of pine and wood smoke drifting from the scattered buildings that made up the small frontier town. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Your comment helps our community grow stronger. Thanks, and let's get back to the story. Clara lifted her chin against the wind and picked up her single carpetbag. Whatever happened next, she would face it with the same quiet determination that had carried her through her husband's death and the factory accident, through the discovery that he had left her with nothing but debts, and through the long months when she realized she was carrying his child. The baby moved within her as if responding to her resolve, and Clara allowed herself the smallest of smiles. She might be alone, but she was not truly alone. The main street of Cedar Ridge stretched before her like a promise and a challenge. False-fronted buildings lined both sides of the dusty thoroughfare, their weathered wood and painted signs speaking of a community that had carved itself from the wilderness through sheer will. The general store stood next to a modest hotel, and Clara could see the warm glow of lanterns beginning to appear in windows as the afternoon faded toward evening. A church steeple rose above the other buildings, its simple cross offering a beacon of hope in the growing twilight. Clara walked slowly toward the hotel, her boots echoing on the wooden sidewalk. The weight of curious stares followed her, and she could hear the whispered conversations that seemed to follow pregnant women everywhere, especially those traveling alone. She had grown accustomed to the judgment in people's eyes, the quick calculations they made about her circumstances, the assumptions that followed her like shadows. But she had also learned to hold her head high, to meet their gazes with steady eyes that revealed nothing of the fear that sometimes gripped her in the quiet hours before dawn. The hotel lobby was small but clean, warmed by a pot-bellied stove that crackled with burning wood. The desk clerk, a thin man with kind eyes and graying hair, looked up from his ledger as she approached. His gaze took in her condition without judgment, and Clara felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "I need a room for the night," she said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that churned in her stomach like the November wind outside. "Of course, miss. That'll be $2, and that includes breakfast in the morning." His voice held the gentle cadence of someone who had learned to read the stories written in travelers' faces. "I'm Henry Caldwell. My wife Martha runs the kitchen, and she makes the finest biscuits this side of the Continental Divide." Clara reached into her small purse, counting out the coins with careful precision. She had enough money for perhaps a week, maybe 2 if she was careful about meals. After that, she would need to find work, though she knew that opportunities for a woman in her condition would be limited. The baby kicked, as if reminding her that time was not a luxury she possessed. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," she said, accepting the room key. "I'm Clara Manning. Welcome to Cedar Ridge, Mrs. Manning. Rooms upstairs, second door on the right. If you need anything, just holler." The room was simple but comfortable, with a narrow bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a washstand with a chipped basin, and a single window that looked out over the main street. Clara set her bag on the floor and sank onto the bed, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of her exhaustion. Through the thin walls, she could hear the sounds of the town settling into evening. Horses' hooves on the street below, the distant sound of a piano from what must be a saloon, the murmur of voices as people went about their evening routines. She pressed her hands to her belly and felt the baby's responsive movement. "We're going to be all right," she whispered, though she was not entirely sure she believed it. "Somehow, we're going to find our place here." The next morning brought a soft snowfall that dusted the town in pristine white. Clara woke to the sound of activity in the street below and the smell of bacon and coffee drifting up from the hotel's kitchen. She dressed carefully in her best dress, a navy blue wool that she had let out at the seams to accommodate her growing figure. Looking in the small mirror above the washstand, she pinned her dark hair into a neat bun and pinched her cheeks to bring some color to her pale complexion. Martha Caldwell proved to be as kind as her husband, a plump woman with flower-dusted hands and eyes that sparkled with warmth. She served Clara a breakfast of eggs, bacon, biscuits, and coffee without any of the questions that Clara had come to expect from strangers. Instead, she filled the silence with gentle chatter about the weather, the town, and the harvest that had just ended. "You planning to stay in Cedar Ridge long?" Martha asked as she refilled Clara's coffee cup. "I'm not sure yet," Clara replied honestly. "I was supposed to meet someone here, but those plans have changed." Martha nodded without pressing for details. "Well, if you're looking for work, you might talk to Doc Harrison. His wife passed last spring, and he's been struggling to keep up with both his practice and his household. He's got 2 young children who could use a woman's care." Clara felt a flutter of hope in her chest. "Do you think he might consider hiring someone in my condition?" Doc Harrison's a good man, Martha said firmly. He sees people's hearts, not their circumstances. His office is just down the street, next to the bank. After breakfast, Clara walked through the softly falling snow to Dr. Harrison's office. The building was small but well-maintained, with a painted sign that read Thomas Harrison, M.D., in neat black letters. Through the window, she could see a man in his 30s bent over a desk, his brown hair touched with early gray at the temples. She knocked softly on the door. "Come in," called a voice from inside. Dr. Harrison looked up as she entered, and Clara was struck by the kindness in his gray eyes. He was tall and lean, with the careful movements of someone accustomed to handling delicate things. His office smelled of carbolic acid and dried herbs, and she could see medical books lining the shelves along one wall. "I'm Clara Manning," she said. "Martha Caldwell suggested I speak with you about possible employment." Dr. Harrison set down his pen and gave her his full attention. His eyes took in her condition without surprise or judgment, and Clara felt herself relax slightly. "Please, sit down," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Martha mentioned you might be looking for work. I'll be honest with you, Mrs. Manning. I do need help. My children, Emma and Sam, are 8 and 6 years old, and they've been trying to take care of themselves since their mother died. I've been attempting to manage both my practice and the household, but I'm afraid I'm failing at both." "What kind of help are you looking for?" Clara asked. "Someone to cook, clean, help with the children. Someone who could make our house feel like a home again." His voice carried a note of sadness that Clara recognized. "I can offer room and board plus $15 a month. The work wouldn't be too strenuous, especially considering your condition." Clara felt tears prick at her eyes. It was more kindness than she had expected to find in this frontier town. "When would you need me to start?" "Tomorrow, if you're willing. The children are staying with neighbors, but they need to come home. They need stability, and I'm afraid I haven't been able to provide that for them." "I accept," Clara said without hesitation. "And Dr. Harrison, thank you. I know my situation is unusual." "Mrs. Manning," he said gently. "In my experience, unusual situations often bring unexpected blessings. Emma and Sam need someone who understands that life doesn't always go according to plan. I think you might be exactly what our family needs." That afternoon, Clara moved her few belongings to the Harrison house, a tidy 2-story home with yellow curtains in the windows and a vegetable garden that had been carefully prepared for winter. Dr. Harrison showed her to a comfortable room on the first floor, explaining that he thought the stairs might become difficult for her in the coming months. When the children arrived that evening, Clara felt her heart swell with recognition. Emma had her father's gray eyes and serious expression, while Sam bounced with barely contained energy that reminded Clara of her own brother at that age. They regarded her with the careful politeness of children who had learned to be wary of disappointment. "Miss Clara is going to help take care of us," Dr. Harrison explained to them. "She's going to live here and make sure you have good meals and clean clothes." "Are you going to leave like Mama did?" Sam asked with the directness of a 6-year-old. Clara knelt down to his level, ignoring the discomfort in her back. "I'm not going anywhere, Sam. Sometimes grown-ups have to leave when they don't want to, but I'm planning to stay right here with you and Emma and your papa." Emma stepped closer, her eyes moving to Clara's rounded figure. "Are you going to have a baby?" "Yes, I am. In a few more months." "Will the baby live here too?" Emma asked. "If that's all right with everyone," Clara said, looking up at Dr. Harrison. "Of course," he said simply. "This house has room for all of us." Over the following weeks, Clara settled into a rhythm that felt more natural than anything she had experienced since her husband's death. She woke early to prepare breakfast for Dr. Harrison before he left for his rounds, then spent her mornings with the children, helping Emma with her reading and teaching Sam his letters. Afternoons were for household tasks, washing, mending, cooking, and the 100 small chores that kept the home running smoothly. The work was not difficult, but it was constant, and Clara found herself grateful for the routine. Emma and Sam gradually warmed to her presence, and she discovered that caring for them came as naturally as breathing. Emma was bright and eager to learn, while Sam had an infectious laugh that filled the house with joy. In the evenings, after the children were in bed, she would sit by the fire with her mending, often joined by Dr. Harrison as he caught up on his medical journals. "You've transformed this place," he told her one evening in December as they sat in the comfortable parlor. Snow was falling steadily outside, and the house felt like a haven from the winter cold. "The children are happier than they've been since Catherine died." "They're wonderful children," Clara replied, her hands busy with one of Sam's shirts that had torn at the elbow. "They just needed someone to pay attention to them." "And you? Are you happy here?" Clara considered the question. She had not thought much about happiness in recent months, focused as she had been on simple survival. But sitting in this warm room, listening to the children's peaceful breathing upstairs, feeling her baby move within her, she realized that she was content in a way she had not expected to be again. "Yes," she said simply. "I think I am." December brought a string of blizzards that kept the family housebound for days at a time. Clara used the forced indoor time to teach the children games she remembered from her own childhood, and to work on baby clothes, cutting down some of her own garments to create tiny gowns and blankets. Emma proved to have a talent for needlework, and she helped Clara embroider small flowers on the baby's things. "What will you name the baby?" Emma asked one afternoon as they worked together by the parlor window. "I'm not sure yet," Clara admitted. "What do you think would be a good name?" "If it's a girl, maybe Rose. Because Mama loved roses, Emma suggested. And if it's a boy, maybe Joseph, because that's a strong name. Clara smiled, touched by the child's earnestness. Those are beautiful names, Emma. I'll think about them. Dr. Harrison joined their conversations more and more frequently, and Clara began to notice the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his practice, his plans for the town, his hopes for his children's futures. She found herself looking forward to their evening talks, to the sound of his voice reading aloud to the children, to the quiet moments when their hands would accidentally touch as they reached for the same book or cup of coffee. Christmas arrived with a clarity of cold that made the snow sparkle like diamonds in the sunlight. Clara had worried that the holiday would be difficult for the children, their first Christmas without their mother, but Emma and Sam threw themselves into preparations with an enthusiasm that was contagious. They made paper decorations for a small pine tree that Dr. Harrison cut from his property, and Clara taught them to make molasses cookies from her grandmother's recipe. On Christmas morning, Clara woke to find a small wrapped package on her bedside table. Inside was a delicate silver locket, old but beautifully crafted, with a note in Dr. Harrison's handwriting. For someone who has brought Christmas back to our home. When she emerged from her room, she found the family gathered around the tree, and Dr. Harrison smiled at her with an expression she had not seen before, something warmer and more personal than gratitude. "Merry Christmas, Clara," he said softly. "Merry Christmas, Thomas," she replied, and she felt something shift between them, some barrier that had been carefully maintained suddenly becoming permeable. January brought the coldest weather anyone could remember, and with it, Clara's first real challenge since arriving in Cedar Ridge. She woke one morning to find Sam burning with fever, his small body shaking with chills despite the blankets piled on top of him. Dr. Harrison examined him carefully, his face grave. "It's pneumonia," he said quietly to Clara while Emma sat holding her brother's hand. "He's going to need constant care. I'll do everything I can medically, but he'll need nursing around the clock." Clara did not hesitate. She moved a chair into Sam's room and settled in to watch over him, leaving only when Emma or Dr. Harrison could spell her. She bathed his fevered face with cool cloths, spooned broth into him when he could manage it, and held his hand through the long nights when his breathing became labored and frightening. On the third night, as Sam's fever reached its peak, Clara found herself praying with a desperation she had not felt since her husband's accident. She bargained with God, promised anything if only this sweet child would recover. Dr. Harrison worked tirelessly, adjusting treatments, consulting his medical books, never leaving Sam's side for more than a few minutes at a time. "I don't know what I'd do if I lost him too," he whispered to Clara during one of the darkest hours before dawn. "You won't," Clara said firmly, though she was not sure where her confidence came from. "He's going to be fine. He's strong, and he's stubborn, and he's not ready to leave us yet." She was right. Sam's fever broke on the fourth morning, and his breathing eased. When he opened his eyes and asked for water in a voice that was weak but clear, Clara felt tears of relief stream down her cheeks. Dr. Harrison gathered both his children in his arms, and Clara saw his shoulders shake with emotion. "Thank you," he said to Clara over Sam's head. "I couldn't have saved him without you." "We saved him together," Clara replied. "That's what families do." The word hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them had been ready to acknowledge before this moment. Dr. Harrison met her eyes over Sam's tousled head, and Clara saw her own feelings reflected in his gaze. February brought a gradual warming that hinted at spring's eventual arrival, and with it, the growing awareness that Clara's time was approaching. She had begun to experience the backaches and swollen feet that she remembered from conversations with other women, and Dr. Harrison watched her with increasing professional concern. "You should consider slowing down," he told her one evening as she struggled to rise from her chair after mending. "The baby will be here soon, and you need to conserve your strength." "There's too much to do," Clara protested, but even as she said it, she knew he was right. Simple tasks had become more difficult, and she found herself resting more frequently throughout the day. "Emma and I can help more," Sam announced from his place on the floor, where he was playing with wooden blocks Dr. Harrison had carved for him during his recovery. "I'm strong enough now." "Yes, you are," Clara agreed, smiling at him. "You're both strong enough to help with lots of things." As March arrived with its promise of spring, Clara felt the baby's movements becoming stronger and more frequent. She began to experience the nesting instinct that Dr. Harrison had told her about, the urgent need to prepare everything for the baby's arrival. Emma helped her arrange the cradle that Dr. Harrison had retrieved from the attic, the same cradle where both Emma and Sam had slept as infants. "The baby will be like our little brother or sister," Emma said as they arranged tiny clothes in the dresser drawer that would serve as the baby's wardrobe. "Would you like that?" Clara asked. "Yes," Emma said without hesitation. "And I think Papa would like it too. He smiles more when he looks at you than he has since Mama died." Clara felt her cheeks warm at the child's observation. It was true that something had changed between her and Dr. Harrison in the months since Sam's illness. Their conversations had become more personal, their comfortable silences more intimate. She had caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart race, and she had found herself doing the same when she thought he was not looking. One evening in late March, as they sat by the fire after the children had gone to bed, Dr. Harrison set down his medical journal and turned to face her fully. "Clara," he said, his voice carrying a nervous edge she had not heard before. "I need to tell you something." She set down her mending and gave him her full attention, her heart beginning to beat faster. When you came to Cedar Ridge, I thought I was hiring a housekeeper, he continued. Someone to help with practical things, to care for my children while I worked. I never expected to find someone who would become so essential to our happiness, to our sense of being a complete family. Clara felt tears pricking at her eyes, but she remained silent, sensing that he needed to finish what he was trying to say. I know your situation is complicated, he went on. I know you came here under different circumstances, and I don't want you to feel pressured by anything I might say. But I also can't continue to pretend that I don't have feelings for you that go far beyond gratitude or friendship. Thomas, Clara whispered, her voice catching on his name. I love you, Clara, he said simply. I love your kindness, your strength, the way you've brought joy back into this house. I love watching you with Emma and Sam, and I love the idea of raising your child as if he or she were my own. If you'll have me, I'd like to ask you to marry me. Not because you need a husband or because I need a wife, but because I can't imagine our lives without each other. Clara felt the tears spill over, but they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. She had not dared to hope for this, had not allowed herself to believe that someone could love her completely, circumstances and all. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for months, but I was afraid to hope that you might feel the same way. Dr. Harrison crossed to her chair and knelt beside it, taking her hands in his. Then you'll marry me? Yes, Clara said, laughing through her tears. Yes, Thomas, I'll marry me. He leaned forward and kissed her gently, a kiss that tasted of promise and new beginnings. When they broke apart, Clara felt as if the last pieces of her heart had finally found their proper places. They were married 2 weeks later in the small church at the center of town, with Emma and Sam as their witnesses and most of Cedar Ridge in attendance. Clara wore her best dress with a bouquet of early wildflowers that Emma had picked, and Dr. Harrison stood beside her with an expression of such happiness that it made Clara's heart swell with joy. The baby arrived 3 weeks after the wedding, on a warm April morning when the air was soft with the promise of spring. Clara labored through the night with Dr. Harrison attending her and Martha Caldwell providing comfort and encouragement. When the baby finally arrived, a healthy boy with a strong cry and a head full of dark hair, Clara felt a completion she had not known was possible. He's beautiful, Dr. Harrison whispered as he placed the baby in Clara's arms. What shall we name him? Clara looked down at her son, then up at Emma and Sam, who had been allowed in to meet their new brother. She thought of all the names she had considered, but only one felt right in this moment. Thomas, she said. Thomas Joseph Harrison. Tommy for short. Dr. Harrison's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? I'm sure, Clara said. He's your son now, just as Emma and Sam are mine. We're a family, all of us together. As spring turned to summer, Clara settled into her new life with a sense of deep contentment. Tommy thrived under the attention of his older siblings, who competed to help with his care. Emma proved to be a natural little mother, while Sam appointed himself the baby's protector and entertainer. Dr. Harrison expanded his practice, taking on a partner so that he could spend more time with his growing family. In the evenings, they would sit on the front porch, watching the children play in the yard while Tommy slept peacefully in Clara's arms. Do you ever regret it? Dr. Harrison asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Regret what? Clara asked. Coming here. Everything that happened. The way your life changed so completely. Clara considered the question, thinking back to that cold November afternoon when she had stepped off the train with nothing but a carpetbag and a heart full of uncertainty. She thought of all the paths her life might have taken, all the different endings her story could have had. No, she said finally. I don't regret any of it. If I hadn't come here, if things hadn't happened exactly as they did, I never would have found you and Emma and Sam. I never would have learned that sometimes the things that seem like disasters are actually blessings in disguise. Dr. Harrison reached over and took her free hand, threading their fingers together. I love you, Clara Harrison. And I love you, Thomas Harrison, she replied. All of you. This whole beautiful, unexpected life we've built together. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Clara felt Tommy stir in her arms. She looked down at her son, then around at her family, at the home they had created together from broken pieces and second chances. She had come to Cedar Ridge as a rejected mail-order bride with nothing but hope and determination. She had found something far more precious than the life she had originally planned. She had found love that saw beyond circumstances, acceptance that embraced every part of her story, and a family that had been worth every difficult step of the journey that brought her here. Take a moment to reflect on Clara's journey from rejection to belonging. Share in the comments what part of her story resonated most with you, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of love conquering all circumstances. Sometimes our greatest disappointments lead us exactly where we need to be.